Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio today, Bryan, Leonard, and Preston, the Sports Cheetah. We're going to be doing some handicapping videos for you this week, and this is our series where we like to talk about different topics to try to help people be better handicappers on their own. In this week, Bryan, we're going to talk about bankroll management. Last week, we kind of touched upon it at the end of the other video, and I said, you know what, that's something we ought to have a whole video for. And everybody talks about money management, you know, and betting the games, and it's a big important thing, but you got to also protect your bankroll. You can't play over your means and to make money. And we were talking last week, what kind of got us thinking about it was when we were talking about future wagers. Guys, I've been doing this for, forever, 36 years. And I know every time, with the phone service, when I used to get a new guy, the first question they would ask me is, what should I bet on per game? And that question, the answer is different for everybody. Bryan, you've been in business as long as I have. What do you usually tell somebody when they ask you that question?
Well, first off, when we're talking about bankroll management, so many people bet for a living that don't even have a bankroll. The point of bankroll management is that's money set aside, has nothing to do with your family, nothing to do with your everyday expenses, in which you can afford to lose. And believe me, everybody I know has lost bankrolls in the past, and that's how you get to be a better handicapper overall, because you've been through that. You know what you have to do. So basically, this is money you set aside. I actually had somebody come up to me the other day at a Stations casino, and he was losing his job, and he wanted to bet for a living. And I said, well, do you have, I said, what do you want to bet? And he says, $1,000 a game. And I said, well, unless you have a $100,000 bankroll and you're just starting out, you don't want to get into that, because a lot of people, Ed Meyer is one of our colleagues, and he wrote a nice book about this in the past. You could pick 16% or 60% winners, which everybody loves 60% winners. Doesn't happen all the time, but it's a great percentage. But if you're playing 16% of your bankroll, you're actually going to lose money because you're playing too much. So you need to be able to, what I like to do is I like to know what winning percentage you're going to have. And if you don't chart your plays, you don't know what your winning percentage is. So I'm very conservative. I usually play a small amount on my bankroll, but you want a bankroll that will not affect the way you're living.
Absolutely, and it can sustain, because like you said, even if you're hitting 60%, there's going to be streaks where you're going to lose 8, 10 games, 12 games in a row. It happens.
Even professionals lose that.
It happens, and you have to have the bankroll. Now, Preston, you're a poker guy like I am too. You play some poker, and a lot of time, when you sit down at a table for a buy-in, you always, if you're sitting at a 1-2 game or a 2-5 game, you're talking about the big blinds, and you buy in for X number of big blinds, and then your whole bankroll's not that one session. You got to have enough money for your poker bankroll to sustain several losing sessions, because they happen, but you're buying in for X number, and the number most people talk about is 100 big blinds when you sit down. What approach do you take with your betting and protecting your bankroll?
Yeah, the poker analogy is great, because when I first started playing online, I was a young kid, 18 years old, whatever. I was like, this is awesome.
A young kid.
I put, yeah, I am, I guess. I don't feel it anymore, but you deposit like $50 or $100, and you'd play it all at once and hope that you could run it up to some, and then you'd lose it, and you'd be like, well, crap. And then you redeposit. So you learn your lessons young when you're younger. But I've learned from that, also just from going through school and going through the sports betting stuff. I'm really conservative as well, I guess, if you wanted to look at it that way. But I actually break up my actual bankrolls and allot them per sport, and I also have futures separate. So for people that have gotten the Cheetah Guide, for example, in the last 3 or 4 years, anywhere from like 15 to 30 season win totals in a season. And then I also have some division futures, and you guys know I come here, I bet the games of the year last year, so I had to have some of my bankroll allotted for that. So I have like a preseason futures for college football bankroll, then I have my in-season bankroll for college football. Same thing for baseball that just started. I allotted a certain amount just for season win totals and futures for that, separate from my in-season stuff. And I think doing that, for most people, it might seem like you're betting really small because you have all these separate bankrolls within your one main bankroll. But I think that's the most conservative and smart way to do it, especially when you're first starting and you're trying to really just kind of grow and get used to it. Like this guy that you met, I thought that was an interesting story. $1,000 right away a game, you just lost your job, and you probably haven't bet very often, you're not very experienced. I mean, that's never going to really pan out for someone. So it might be seemingly low. You might be frustrated that you can only bet $50 a game or something. But that's where you have to start, and as you learn and you get better, then you can increase that amount.
Absolutely, and we're going to run just a little bit long here, let the guys know, but a question for you, and you talk about all of the separate bankrolls, and that's great. And let's talk about in-game wagering, because that's something that's become much more popular, and you're a guy that really does a lot of in-game betting. And as you're watching games, and I know if you're in a sports book and you got 3 or 4 games going that you're focusing in on, all of a sudden you can get a ton of wagers going into the game. So how are you doing that with all of the different wagers that you got in game?
Yeah, I actually last year, this is my second year, I have a separate bankroll for in-game stuff, and it includes second half plays as well. And the reason being, I actually bet them. I'm more comfortable doing it. I actually bet them bigger per play than I do my other stuff. And if you're comfortable doing it, you're more experienced. If I feel like I made a play in game and I maybe was on the wrong side or didn't go the way I wanted right away, you can always get off. Not always, that's a terrible word. I didn't mean that. I mean, oftentimes you can get off and you can buy back or minimize the amount that you originally bet. Say I liked North Carolina was down 10 and I thought they'd cover 5.5 in game, and they did. They came back and tied the game. They ended up losing. That was a great bet. But if they'd cut it down to 5 or 6 and Nova was slowing it down and there was some free throw game, and I wanted to try to play Nova 4.5 back and just kind of get off. So I didn't want to gamble and flip a coin in the last minute during a free throw contest. That's something that you're going to get a shot at doing. So I know we're going over, but if you're not comfortable doing in game in general, don't try to do it. And if you're doing it, then just do it for a lot less. Me personally, at this point, I actually think there's more value in it in general, and so I actually bet it for more. But it is a separate allotted bankroll for in-game, like you were asking originally.
And absolutely, and the lesson here, I think, learn, and especially for new people that are getting involved, start small. Get your feet wet, get comfortable with the situation, and see where your strengths and weaknesses are. And then, as Preston said, have the separate bankrolls. I know, like every year, example last year, we had a fantastic baseball season, and people are telling me as we're rolling into football, should we just keep playing the same way? And I said, no, the football season is a new season. Just because what we did in baseball is no guarantee what we're going to do in the football season. It's a totally different sport. You start that bankroll over again. Get your number, and if you're doing percentage of bankroll, as your bankroll's growing, your wagers are going up or down, and it's taking care of itself. But yes, have a different bankroll for every sport, because if you are stronger in one sport, you want to be wagering more in that sport whenever you're hitting it. So those are the things that I take from it, and I hope this helps everybody out with it. And we're going to continue to do things like this. And Twitter, if you guys have any questions or ideas that you want us to discuss in depth on these type of videos, we do the question and answer ones. But if you have something in depth like this that we can do a whole 6-7 minute video on, please let us know. We appreciate that. And guys, don't forget, every weekend at Wager Talk, $69, you can pick up an all access package. Pick your favorite capper, get all of their plays Thursday through Monday. It's 5 big days, $69. There's not a deal better in the sports industry. Check it out at wagertalk.com. We'll be back with more here at Wager Talk.